There, everybody. Welcome to our daily Bible reading. You are with Robin at In the Family Way Coaching. I am so glad you are here with me today, whether you are following along on your favorite podcasting app or whether you're watching the video. We are going through the Bible this year using the Day by Day Kids Bible, which is written by Karen Henley. And we are also going to be doing our counting of the Omer. I almost forgot to mention that. If you are following along with your daily calendar, go ahead and get that out. We are now in the month of May, and we're going to keep track of our daily commitment. So get that sticker out or however you are following along, because you're about to hear the Bible today. For those of you looking for your downloadable calendar, I will have that posted by the time by the time you see this episode up. So you will have your calendar ready for printing as well at home. We are going through the daily counting of the Omer, and we are on day 18 already. So let's go ahead and get started with that. If you would like to join with me in counting of the Omer, just go ahead and repeat after me. It's as simple as that. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and has commanded us to count the Omer. Today is the 4th day of the 3rd week and day 18. I have counted the Omer. Thank you for counting the Omer with me. I will, of course, have that download link available in case anybody is just finding this link, this event rather, and is interested in their own daily devotional for counting the Omer. It is very short, as you see, and there's just a real quick reading. There's always just one Bible verse and then a thought for the day, and that's that. But it really helps us stay on track and on focus for this 50 days that we are counting out from the day after Passover to the last day of the harvest, which is called Shavuot. And we may think of these as being Jewish holidays, but these are actually things that God has commanded us to keep forever. And I have never encountered these in all of my years of attending a Christian church. So I have begun attending a Messianic Jewish congregation where they teach how Christ has fulfilled these things, but that we are still commanded to observe them in remembrance so that we can remember the connection that God brings between the Old Testament and the New Testament. These are very important times for us to remember. So if you are following along in your own section, we are on May 1st if you have your own copy of the Day by Day Kids Bible. Otherwise, I'm going to be reading it to you, which is great. And today's reading takes place in 1 Kings chapters 15 through 16 and 22, chapter 22 of 1 Kings, and 2 Chronicles 16 and 17, as well as Joshua chapter 6. So if you are rather new to this event, this Bible has been written chronologically, and it's in storybook form, and it's so that we can hear the big story from start to finish, Genesis through Revelation, in one continuous story. The books of the Bible are not compiled chronologically, and sometimes events are recorded in more than one book. So it can be a little confusing when you're reading as to what happened when, and as to whether this has already been written about and you're reading it again, or if this is happening again, because sometimes, as we know also, people have the same name. So it can be confusing about who you're reading about and when. And it doesn't do us much good to read the Bible if we don't understand it. So this event is meant to cover the entire Bible in just 1 year without repeating any of the stories, and is giving it to us in a very easy to understand storybook form. And as if you've been with us for a while, then you can testify to the fact that this is not just for kids. This is a great version of the Bible that is very easy to understand. And every single day, we will have daily application as to how today's reading can be used in your life. So if you know of somebody who would be interested in following along with us, share this event with them. Talk about it. Let them know. The goal is to spread the word about reading God's Word. It's not simply to gain attention for the event itself. I don't care about this for me. My goal is to help you have more faith in our God and to learn to obey Him more so that you can deepen your relationship with Him. And we do that by first reading His Word. And I want us to understand it. So we will see how God has daily application in every single story that we read every single day. And I love that. That is one of the things that really made me passionate, that God put on my heart of why I wanted to do this event. So here we go. Our first section is entitled Making a Deal. Now King Baasha of Israel started fights with Judah, and he began building a fort at Ramah. Then people couldn't go in or out of Judah. There was some silver and gold left in the worship house, and there was some left in the palace. So King Asa gave it to some leaders, and they took it to the king of another land. It was the land of Aram. "Let's make a deal," they told the king of Aram. "We're giving you this silver and gold. Forget your deal with Baasha in Israel. Then he will stop fighting us." So the king of Aram made a deal with King Asa of Judah, and then the army of Aram went to fight Israel. They took many of the towns in Israel. King Baasha heard about it, and he stopped building the fort at Ramah. He and his army left. Then King Asa told everyone to take Ramah apart, and they took away the stones, and they took away the wood, and they used them to build walls around 2 other towns. Now, a prophet came to King Asa in Judah, and the prophet's name was Hanani. He said, "You did not trust God. Instead, you trusted the king of Aram. Remember the army from Cush? It was a big, strong army, but you trusted God, and God helped you win. God looks around all the earth," said Hanani. "He looks for people who love him with their whole heart, and he makes them strong. You were not wise to make a deal with Aram, and so now Judah will have to fight." King Asa got angry at Hanani, and he was so angry he put Hanani into jail. Sometime later, King Asa got sick. He got a sickness in his feet, and it was very bad. But he didn't ask God to help him. He only asked the doctors. So King Asa died. The people put Asa's body in a grave in Jerusalem, and they made a big fire to show how great he was. Asa's son Jehoshaphat became the next king of Judah. Now he was a good king. He did what was right. He made forts and sent army men to the forts. And God was with King Jehoshaphat. King Jehoshaphat tried to do what God wanted. So God let him control the land. Many people brought him gifts, and he became very rich. And people talked about how great he was. King Jehoshaphat followed God's ways. He got rid of places for worshiping idols. He sent men to teach in different towns. They took God's book of the law with them. And all the other lands around were afraid of God. So they didn't fight with Judah, and even Israel didn't fight with Judah. Some nations brought gifts to Jehoshaphat, and some brought him silver, some brought him goats and rams. So Jehoshaphat grew more and more powerful. He had a big army, too. Our next section is entitled Trouble in Israel. Now the prophet Hanani had a son named Jehu. He was a prophet, too, And God sent Jehu to King Baasha in Israel. Jehu told King Baasha what God said. I made you leader of my people, but you sinned just like Jeroboam. You made my people in Israel sin. You made me angry, so I am going to get rid of you and your family. They will be like Jeroboam's family. Dogs will eat the ones who die in the city. Birds will eat the ones who die in the country. And sometime later, King Baasha died, and his son Elah became the next king of Israel. There was a leader in Israel named Zimri, and he was in charge of half of the chariots. Zimri made plans to kill Elah. One day, King Elah was at his house, and he was getting drunk. Zimri came into the house and killed King Elah. Then Zimri became the king of Israel. Right away, King Zimri killed all of Baasha's family, and that made Jehu's words come true. Baasha's family died just like Jeroboam's family, and that's because they had sinned. They had made idols to worship. They had led the people of Israel to sin. Now, Israel's army was in its camp, and they heard that Zimri had killed King Elah, so they said Omri would be the next king. Now, Omri was the leader of the army, and they marched to the town where Zimri was, and they began fighting against it. Zimri saw that Omri's army had taken over the city, so Zimri went into the palace, he set it on fire, and he died in the fire. And it all happened because he had sinned. He had done what was wrong. Then the people of Israel made two groups. One group wanted Tibni to be king, and the other group wanted Omri to be king. Omri's group was stronger, so Omri became the king of Israel. King Omri bought a hill, and he built a city on the hill. He named the city Samaria. But King Omri was a bad king. He sinned more than anybody before him. Doing wrong didn't matter to him. King Omri had a son named Ahab, and Ahab married a woman named Jezebel. She was the daughter of the king of another land. And when Omri died, Ahab became the king. And nobody before was quite as bad as Ahab. He did even more terrible, sinful things. And his wife Jezebel got him to sin even more. King Ahab worshipped idols. He began to worship the fake god called Baal. He built a worship house for Baal. He set up an altar for Baal. He did many things that made God angry. He did more bad things than any king before him. Now, during this time, a man built the city of Jericho back up. And this happened when Ahab was king. Long ago, God had talked to Joshua about Jericho. God had told him what would happen to anyone who built Jericho again. It happened just as God had said. The man's oldest son died when he started building it. And then his youngest son died when he put the gates in. And that is exactly what God had said would happen. And that's the end of our reading today. Wow. These nations are having difficulties, very much, a lot of difficulties. They are just sinning and sinning and sinning. And it all started when the kingdom was torn apart because Solomon had failed to continue to worship God with his whole heart. And he said that the kingdom would now be split into two kingdoms because he had allowed his wives, his many, many wives, to lead him astray, and he had allowed and built other places of worship. This all started because of Solomon, where the kingdom was torn into two. When we sin, we can lead others to sin down the way, and we won't know it. We have to be careful of what we do because people will continue to follow along in the sins that we commit, or they will follow along in the good that we do. So that's part of our daily application, is to look how far sin traveled because of one man allowing things to happen in the country. If Solomon had not sinned, God would not have torn the country into two then. We don't know what would have happened otherwise down the road, but it would not have happened from Solomon. And now there are two nations that are not going to be united again for a very long time. And every time we hear about one of these kings of Israel, they are sinning more and more and more and more and more than the last one. Each one is worse than the last one. Now, in Judah, we had King Asa, and we saw yesterday that he trusted in God, and God told him that when you trust in me, I will be with you, and when you do not trust in me, I will leave you. You would think that that would be enough to keep him faithful with God, but he didn't. He created other places to worship, and he didn't, or rather, he did not trust God when he was concerned about Israel building the fort at Ramah so that people couldn't go in or out of Judah. So he was now putting his faith in his own self in a deal that he made with Aram. This is our big application. How many times do we look at our own lives and think that we need to take steps in order to protect ourselves instead of trusting in God? When we deliberately put our trust in God and ask Him to be our shield, ask Him to be our protector, and trust in Him, He has told us over and over that He is faithful and He will be with us. When we seek Him, we will find Him. And as long as we are with Him, He will be with us. And God is so faithful to come back to us each and every time we step away and then come back again. But let's try to make those times of stepping away less and not at all, if possible. We need to always trust in God to take care of us, and not to put our trust in our own understandings, but in all ways lean on Him. And so God sent a prophet, Hanani, to King Asa, and King Asa didn't like the message that he sent, and then he put Hanani into jail. That was a very bad thing. And they had nothing but trouble after that. There are opportunities in our lives where we may be putting our trust into our workplaces, like our management, and to be in charge of our well-being. When we look to other people for our well-being, I'll give you an example. So recently, I have been more faithful to take the Sabbath off because it is commanded, and I had not been doing that. I've been working both Saturdays and a lot of Sundays because it gives me something that allows me to have priority scheduling of my work time. So I would get to schedule my own work, and that gives me control over my life. And plus I was working on the Sabbath to do it. So I was doing two things wrong according to what we've been reading lately, right? God said to keep the Sabbath holy and remember it. So and my husband really ended up enjoying the time that I took off because he's off Saturdays and Sundays. He works a traditional Monday through Friday job. And so when I started doing that, amazing things started happening. When I decided to take the Sabbath off, in the last 2 weeks, my husband has attended service with me, and he doesn't normally do that. He didn't attend the service itself, but he went to church with me, and he waited for me to be done, and then he participated in the event afterwards, which was the community eating and the fellowship afterwards. And he's never done that in all of our 23 years together. He's never wanted to join me, even just for that, to wait for me, to spend time with me. But it was of his own decision to do so. And so I'm already seeing blessings from that. So now I've reached the point where I've rolled off of my special status, which gives me scheduling priorities. And now I'm not able to schedule my calendar 2 weeks in advance. And so that what that does is that causes me to rely upon God for my schedule, like manna, on a daily basis. Now, one of the things that encouraged me about that is that during the time when my husband was changing positions within his company, he was off work for several weeks. We didn't know how long it was going to take for his transition to happen from one position to another. And they just didn't have work for him at that time. They took him off of his one position and said, okay, wait for the other one to start. But in the meantime, he just didn't have any work. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. How are we going to pay the bills if he doesn't work? Well, God provided for that. And when I saw God's provision for that, like manna, every day, most of the time, jobs would come. They would call him and they would send him text messages. There were times when they called him during the day and said, can you get to this position as soon as possible? And if you do, we'll pay you for the whole day, even though you're not there for the whole day. So he did it. And I saw this provision like daily manna from God. And so what that did is that increased my faith in relying upon God in our life rather than relying on a company or the schedule. Because when I talk to other people who also work for that company, who don't know my husband, they did not have that experience. But God has routinely shown us and said in the Bible that he has a distinction between his people and those who are not his people. And so his provision is for people who look to him. And that was exactly what we did was we put that trust in him, or at least I did, because he is not a believer, but I am. And God provided for our family on a daily basis. And my husband both had days where he was off, so he had extra time to rest and to be away from a job, but it wasn't sacrificial where it caused a problem financially. And so seeing how well God provided for us when every day was in his hands gave me the encouragement to know that I could trust in God with my own schedule. And so that is what I am doing. And so, for instance, today I only have a half of a day. And I was a little bothered by that at first, but there are things that he gives me to do otherwise that are important. And I love that. So he just has other work and he's giving me rest. And so my shepherd is leading me to green pastures to rest because, quite frankly, I've been absolutely exhausted lately. I come home and I'm just exhausted and I was struggling to get up in the morning and I just felt like I couldn't get enough sleep. I needed rest and my body was sore from the physical activity at work. And he's giving me this rest where I needed it. And I love that. So that's my example, not to brag about me, but to show God's faithfulness that I had the opportunity. So here's where I'm getting to also relying upon God. So in the past, when I did not have a schedule, I would ask one of the managers and say, "Hey, do you need extra help?" And then I would come in if if they felt that they could add me to the schedule. But that's still, I felt that that was still taking the situation into my own hands and saying, well, God, you didn't provide for me a job this morning, so it's my responsibility. I need to go out and be more proactive and get work for myself this morning because you didn't give it to me last night. And so I am trusting in God that if he has me off work, it's for my benefit because God works good into everything. Remember? Even if something looks bad, God is working good into it. And so I am trusting him in that, and I am not putting my trust in the managers to potentially adjust my schedule to give me hours that I wouldn't otherwise have. Instead, I'm giving it completely to God. And so that is the situation where King Asa put his trust into his deal with the king of Aram. And so I see that connection, that similarity there. In the same way, um, there was a woman at the congregation who is frustrated because she has a well And she also has a water meter on the land, and she's never used the water meter, but the water company charges a monthly service fee to have the water meter on the property. Now, the water meter existed prior to her owning the land. So, and it turns out that according to the contract, is that when you purchase to put it in, it's around $30,000 to put one of these water meters in. Even if you never use the water that comes out of it, they charge you a monthly service fee, and that's because that $30,000 pays for the installation. It is not giving you ownership rights to the meter. You are paying for their meter to be on your property. And so she's very frustrated because she doesn't want to pay the monthly service fee, but neither does she want them to remove the meter. And so it is my position that that's like a tie. It's like a security blanket. And I'm advising her to have that security, that umbilical cord cut, to cut that, because that's like a render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. If it's their meter, then you got to pay them for the usage or for their meter being on your property. And if you don't ever, and you've never used water from them in 30 years that you've owned that property, then let them take the meter out. Because has God not been faithful to provide all of your water needs for free with the well that you have? Then why keep it? Allow them to remove their meter so that you don't have to pay them. But it's a security blanket, isn't it? That she wants to keep the meter and not get rid of it because it costs a lot of money to put one back in. So that's putting your faith that well, what if you need it? What if something happens and you need it? Okay. So you're paying for that insurance. You either have to say, okay, I'm going to pay for the insurance and I'm okay with that. I choose to pay for the insurance rather than saying, I have to do this. Or you make the decision to say, I put my faith and trust in God to provide for my needs. And it's okay if I let them take it out. So I'm using these as an example, not as a way to put somebody down, but to show that these are the types of situations that occur in our daily lives that show us the times that we need to be aware that you may have something in your life where you can look at and say, oh, I've been putting my faith in this instead of giving this up and saying, I'm going to put my faith in God to take care of it. And that's what God wants. He wants us to trust in Him. He doesn't want us to put our trust in the king of Aram, making a deal. He doesn't want us to have to make a deal with the water company. He doesn't want us to make a deal with our management at work so that they can help us to be provided for. He wants us to make a deal with Him. I put my trust in you, and I know that no matter what happens, you will work good into it. And that's our daily application today. So I hope that you have found today thought-provoking and that God has lit your light today. And if you have, then when you're finished listening or watching, I would ask that you follow or subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and that you click that light button that we know looks like a heart or a thumbs up. It's really a light, and it's showing the world that we are following God and reading His Word, because it's only through reading His Word that we can learn more about Him and the purpose and the will that He has for our lives. So thank you for following along with me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will be here for everyone again tomorrow.